All right, I'm Jeff, and that's my friend Jason. Jason.
Jeff, how are you?
Oh, I just finished watching what I can only be described as officially it was a Chicago Bears football game.
Yeah, if you want to call it that. Either that or it was an Arizona Cardinals practice, more like. But yeah,
That's probably much more accurate. Oh man, just bad all around.
Yeah, let's jump right into it, man. I mean, where do you want to start?
Let's start with the offensive line again, which every time I looked up was on the ground with Caleb running around doing pirouettes behind the line.
Yeah, I think by the end of the game, they were on their third string tackle, I believe. I can't even remember the guy's name. As what's his name? Darnell Wright went out towards the end, middle of the fourth quarter, with some injury. I can't remember what it was, but yeah, they are so far deep into their offensive line, and not like their starting offensive line was all that great to begin with. But
I was gonna say, not much of a drop off, really.
No, you're talking what? I think they carry 10, and I think they're on like lineman numbers 8 and 9, if I'm not mistaken, right now. So yeah, it's bad. It is really bad.
6 sacks, 12 QB hits, and another lackluster offensive game. 9 points. That's it.
Yeah, I think they, at one point in the game in the fourth quarter, they mentioned that the Cardinals had 13 different defensive players with the QB pressure today.
Yeah, I saw that same stat. I was like, oh boy.
That is insane. And I mean, not like the Cardinals are bad. I mean, they're 5-4 after today, but it's not like they're world beaters either. So
we thought they were.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to, wondering if they were channeling Dennis Green, and I'm sure Dennis Green is smiling somewhere, if you know what I'm saying. But
who's not smiling is Eberflus, who has never won on the road, apparently, which was the strangest stat that I've seen. 0-18 now.
Let's get into that.
That is so weird. That is truly an impressive feat of, just incompetent. It's hard to say incompetence because we're talking about NFL coaches here and NFL teams, but to go 0-18 on the road, really?
Yeah, well, okay, so let's talk about the end of last week. Obviously, we all saw what we saw. Since we talked about the game, it was starting to circulate on social media Sunday night. Obviously, it was really talked about hardcore on Monday, how Tyreek Stevenson, during the Hail Mary, was caught basically yelling at the fans.
Oh yeah.
In Washington,
like 5 seconds into the play, and then
he suddenly turned around and noticed Daniels was running around, and finally decided to run to the other side of the field where all the receivers were.
And so when we recorded last week, this was very raw. It had just ended. We hadn't seen all the analysis. I hadn't seen all the camera angles.
Right.
Oh my gosh, dude, what are you doing? You're a professional athlete on a professional football team. Come on.
Yes. So obviously, sports radio here in Chicago just had an absolute field day with this.
Yes, they should have.
Yes, debating on what's the consequences for Stevenson? Is he going to play? Are they going to suspend him a game? Are they even going to deal with it? Is punishment going to come from the coaching staff, or is the players' quote unquote leadership council going to handle it? I mean, that was the big story, right? And we saw that he didn't start today. I think he was out for the first 2 series.
And then the guy in front of him got hurt. More than
Terrell Smith
wanted him to.
Terrell Smith got hurt, and then Stevenson came in, had a decent game. I mean, nothing crazy. It's not like Kyler Murray lit up the world today, but he didn't really have to. But I think the problem was the Bears, at least Eberflus in front of the press, displayed zero accountability as to what happened in regards to Stevenson, in regards to what actually happened on the play. All he basically said was, we have to be better. And the guys on the score,
he just played it over and over again. At the end of every game. Actually, not the every game, because they've won some of them, but at the end of every half, because they are so bad in the first half.
Yeah, well, you heard him at halftime. Walk into halftime.
We got to be better.
The score is what it is, and we've got to be better. Yeah, duh.
Okay.
No shit, dude. I mean, my God. So I have questions. First off, where is Cole Kmet? Where has he disappeared to in the last 2 weeks? He's one of the better. He's probably a top 8 tight end in the NFL. Probably, he's up there. but
a top half at least. But zero
at
targets.
the very least.
Again, the only thing that I can think of is like he's in somebody's doghouse for whatever reason.
Why? I don't know. Can't imagine why.
Because even Gerald Everett had a catch, and they threw to Mercedes Lewis down by the goal line when Swift got called for the low block and the safety. Like they threw it to Mercedes. I'm like, what? Why?
Yeah, I can't imagine Cole Kmet being in any trouble with anybody. That guy's like a model citizen. So that was my first question. My second question: why is it our receivers can't seem to get themselves open? I realize, look, Caleb's under the gun very quickly due to offensive line. But he's looking, and whenever they shoot or show that camera shot from behind him, kind of seeing what he's got, nobody's open ever. So,
there were a couple times. I was impressed by Odunze today, a couple times in the first half, where
he was great.
Yeah, 5 catches, 104 yards, but I don't think he caught anything in the second half, or definitely don't think the first quarter. Yeah.
But there was 0 catches in the second half.
Caleb's going to the sideline or whatever, and, Caleb was trying to buy some time, and a couple really smart plays by Odunze to kind of step back away from his guy and, create a passing lane and, converted a couple first downs like that. But, yeah, for the most part, where is the separation? And I don't know if it's kind of hard for me to blame that on talent because we do have very talented wide receivers. Is that coaching?
Then it's got to be in the play design. It has to be the play design then, because it seems to happen every single week.
And you watch another team that is like, how are these guys so open?
Right. I know.
And I'm not talking about busted coverage or things like that, because there was one of those earlier in the game too, where Odunze again had broken coverage and he didn't get overthrown for one, which was nice by Caleb to actually hit him.
But boy, was that a lollipop throw that took forever to come down. Holy crap. But I just don't understand it. I mean, you've had DJ Moore and Keenan Allen combined for 19 targets and only 8 catches. Allen had a couple of really bad drops today.
He did.
I don't know what his deal is, but he, for some reason, can't catch the football. Caleb ended 22 of 41 for 216 yards. Again, 0 touchdowns. I think his QBR was like in the 60s or something like that.
69. Nice.
Yeah. Just another rough game for him. And he overshot a couple of throws. I mean, not everything was on the receivers and not everything was on the scheme. He had a couple guys open that he missed. And DeAndre Swift continues to frustrate us because when he breaks one, it's awesome. When he doesn't break one that he didn't today, 16 carries, 51 yards, 3.2 yards a carry.
And Roshan only 3 carries.
Yeah. And as a team, they were 23 for 70, 3.0 yards per carry. So,
meanwhile, they could not stop the rush at all.
No.
They got run over by a big old truck called James Conner today.
Yeah. Well, I think you saw, obviously they're still out without Brisker, they're without Gordon, but they were without Montez Sweat today.
Yep.
And without him, you now remember what they were like before they traded for him. And now you see how big of a difference he really is on defense.
Well, good players are good. I mean, when you don't, there's clearly, there's a talent issue there, but still to get run over that much because of one player is kind of shocking, really, because especially of how well the Bears have been playing all year on defense. I mean, that's been their calling card, and it was just really a collapse on both sides. I would say the MVP today was Torrey Taylor, but even he shanked that. Whatever that was supposed to be after the safety.
Yeah.
He punted like 100 yards into the air and it went like 20 yards in front of him.
Right. Yeah. When the entire receiving team is calling for the fair catch, there's a problem. I'm like, wait a minute, what happened there?
Kid's got a leg though, man. He hit a 67 yarder. I mean, from a punt perspective, like Caleb should not have said what he said during Hard Knocks. And it's coming back to haunt him.
Yeah, no doubt. And then, Santos hit 3 field goals today, 3 for 3, but 2 of them 50-plus yards. So, yeah, they really had trouble moving the football today.
Yeah. So it was just a depressing game because there was really never a glimpse where it was like, oh, yeah, we've got this, or I feel confident about it. It was basically from the very beginning, I was like, nah, today ain't it, Chiefs. It ain't happening.
No. So now what? They're 4-4. I know they have 9 games to go, but 6 of them are against the division. And we know what the NFC North looks like. Are they out of it? Are they done?
Well, they're on the bubble, technically. But with today's loss, they've gone down to a 12% chance to be in the playoffs. Meanwhile, you've got the Vikings, Packers, and the Lions are all in the hunt with better than 2/3 chance of getting into the playoffs, which is absolutely crazy. Think about it.
Yeah. Well, that all 3 of them are considerably better than the Bears are right now.
You know, and the Lions are just, I mean, they are rolling right now, man.
Yeah, they went up to Green Bay and pretty much dominated in Green Bay.
Yeah, which is nice. I'll take a Packers loss any day.
Well, at this point, they just let the Lions run away with the division, right?
Yes.
I mean, they're far enough ahead. You don't want to see the Packers win any more games. You don't want to see the Vikings win any more games if you have a chance to make the playoffs. Obviously, Packers are going to win more games because they're better. Vikings, we'll see what happens tonight. They should win tonight, which would move them to 6-2. And then the Bears would be 2 games behind. So,
yeah. So the playoffs, if you look at the NFC right now, you got the Lions, Commanders, who won again today. Falcons, they also won. They beat up Dallas. Cardinals, Packers, Vikings, and Eagles. That's who's in the hunt. And then you got a bunch of riffraff.
Yeah, and out of those teams, who do you think's going to fall off?
I mean, statistically, you can't identify. Say, Cardinals and Packers are sort of the weakest of those.
Yeah, but
we just got steamrolled by the Cardinals.
That's right.
And the Packers just have our number for whatever reason.
Yeah,
and we've got the toughest schedule now in the league for the remaining games. So I'm looking for silver linings here, and I'm struggling to find them. Other than I hope Caleb continues to develop, and Torrey Taylor may end up with the MVP for the team right now as the punter.
Yeah, he may be your lone representative in the Pro Bowl. If there is such a thing. My question for you is, where does Eberflus stand? Is he on the hot seat?
He has to be. I mean, how can he not be? Now, the Bears don't typically make
the Bears have never fired a coach in the middle of the season. Never. They've never done it.
I don't see it happening, and I'm going to say it'll never happen until it actually happens, because I feel like that's a safe bet. But come on, he's got to be on the hot seat.
I think so too. I think it's a no-brainer. I know there were some people out there that were calling for him to be replaced at the end of last season, to give Caleb a fresh coaching staff, because now most likely they are going to get rid of him. I think they'd be dumb if they didn't. And you're now going to see Caleb in his second offense in 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, which is never good
to Justin Fields and how we run games.
Right, which is never good for a rookie quarterback. So, if the Bears fumble this development of Caleb, I mean, I again, it's almost comedic at this point, but they had a golden opportunity with the draft picks and the trade that they made with Carolina and all that stuff. If they F that up in the long run, oh my God.
Where does Poles sit in this? Because he has not addressed the offensive line. I mean, he's gotten some players. I mean, this is the most talented offensive team, but at least from a player perspective, that we've had in a long time.
For a skill player position to absolutely.
Right. So where's Poles fit into this? Does he get a pass for another year or two?
I think you have to give him at least one more year, because I think we all knew the offensive line was an opportunity, right? And I think it's almost impossible to fix based on what he did this offseason. It was almost impossible to ask him to also fix the offensive line within the same offseason. Don't you think? That's a lot of free agents. It's a lot of, draft picks. I know they drafted a tackle who missed all of preseason and what got hurt last game didn't play today. They signed an offensive guard, Ryan Bates. He has yet to see the field due to injury. You can't help it that guys get hurt, but he signed Nate Davis, who knows what is up with that guy.
Yeah.
He's bad. Doesn't seem like he wants to play. Doesn't ever want to practice.
Great qualities for professional sports.
Yeah, no doubt. So I like Poles. I mean, you watched Hard Knocks. He said all the right stuff. He says all the right stuff. But from
everybody said all the right stuff.
Right.
I mean, it's TV, you know.
But it comes down to executing, and they are not executing consistently at all when they need to. So
yeah. I mean, I think it starts with the coaching. I hate to say it, but you know, it's time. I think something's got to change for sure. But the Bears have had a shit offensive line for 2 decades now.
A long time,
and nobody seems to be interested in fixing it. Instead, it's like we're going to band-aid over it with, you know, a skill player here or there, or a quarterback draft pick or whatever it might be. Meanwhile, the fundamentals are not getting addressed.
Exactly. Well, I mean, football's won on the lines, right?
Yep.
You know, you kind of you protect the quarterback, run the football, stop the run, sack the quarterback. That's how you win football games. And the Bears really struggle with at least 3 out of 4 of those, if not all 4.
And that ain't bad, folks.
Yeah. So, you know, they got lots to figure out. So
it's disappointing. I don't really know what to say other than just a really disappointing showing. And I would say we could have a get better game against the Patriots next week, but they've started to turn around a little bit. So, who knows? 50-50.
We thought this was going to be a get better game, and to me, it's a got worse game. They didn't score an offensive touchdown the entire day. They barely got across the 50-yard line the entire day.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Well, after the Patriots, it's basically, you know, just downhill. Or uphill, I should say.
It's the gauntlet for the end of
Packers,
the year.
Vikings, Lions. You got three division matchups, all currently playoff teams. You got the 49ers, who they've had their struggles, but they're just a better team.
You know they're going to be good, right?
Yeah. And then you got the Vikings, the Lions again, and then you get the Seahawks, who, I could see, you know, maybe they pull something like there, and then the Packers at the end of the season.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you look at that, it's conceivable because there's what, 9 games left? Am I right on that? Yeah,
I think so.
It's conceivable that, okay, they would need to go at least, you know, probably 6-3, maybe 5-4 to have even a shot at the playoffs now in those 9 games. But it's conceivable that you could be looking at 2-7, maybe even 1-8, depending on which team decides to show up. You know, there's just such. I think the word I used today was this team is in disarray.
I don't see them winning more than 2 games the rest of the year. I think the only ones they have a shot at are the Patriots and the Seahawks, and the only way they win the other ones if the other team doesn't show up.
Yeah, I agree.
And so that puts them at 6 wins.
And I know I said at the beginning, and I will eat crow on it. I said there was a path to 10 wins.
Eat crow, you're gonna eat shit, man.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and unfortunately, they're not going to get there. Not like this. There's no way. There's going to have to be significant change in the offseason, or else, you know, Caleb, they're going to lose the fan base all over again. And if there's so much excitement that was before this season, and then they steamroll through the preseason 4-0, everyone was excited. Things were looking pretty decent. They could move the football, and then it just all came to a screeching halt in Washington. And now, I don't know what it's going to take to get it started again, but it certainly didn't happen today. So,
I mean, this is a developmental year now. What can Caleb learn in preparation for next year?
Yeah, besides
how to run around.
How to run around and keep from getting his ass kicked. I really don't know. I really don't know.
Keep Caleb healthy at this point. Is that the number one goal right now?
Okay, yeah. Here, let's touch on that for a second. So at the end of the game, they're down 20 points? I think it was 20 or 19, whatever. They still had him in there dropping back to pass.
Mm-hmm.
And you saw on the very last play of the game, he got absolutely murdered out there on the last play, and he's limping off the field. It's like, why is your franchise guy in there knowing you're down that much, put Bagent in there. Why are you going to leave your guy out there to just get absolutely rolled on every stinking play?
Mm-hmm.
That made no sense to me. And again, that just tells me
Coaching.
what a moron Matt Eberflus is. And I want to give Eberflus the benefit of the doubt. Seems like a nice guy. Was really, again, said all the right stuff on Hard Knocks. Wants to say the right stuff. Protects his players in the press. All that stuff. But what an effing moron to leave your franchise guy out there in that situation. Stupid, stupid, stupid.
What do you think happens behind the scenes? Like, what's the conversation tonight between Poles and Eberflus? Do you think there even is one?
I think there should be.
Do you think they communicate after the games and talk about things like we do?
I would hope so. And I know because, again, listen to sports radio. The guys on the Score were really disappointed in what Eberflus was saying and how he really took no accountability for what happened at the end of the game last week. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, but they're not going to leak that out, right? I mean, is it, I guess, here, I'll ask you this question based on what you just said. Do they owe us anything? Do they owe us what they talk about?
They don't.
I don't think they do.
No, that's business, right?
Right.
But I hope that they are having some honest conversations internally.
Yeah.
To say, look, dude, you're sucking right now. And your team is sucking right now. And you need to figure out what's going to happen. If you don't figure it out, I will.
Well, last week, you had 4 of your captains basically call you out and say, why didn't we call timeout? Why didn't we, pressure the passer the play before the last play? Why didn't we do certain things? Like, call you out publicly.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have things like that going on, when 4 of your 8 captains do that, Cole Kmet being one of them, you're losing your players. And once you lose players, you can't get your message across. You might as well quit. You might as well be done. So
if Eberflus goes, who's the guy or gal, I guess, that we would bring in? Who's available?
I think you have to get an offensive head coach, right? I would think. You look at the coordinator from Detroit, Ben Johnson. I know he's the hot name. You had your chance at Jim Harbaugh. You had your chance. Didn't want to interview him, and look what he's doing in San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
I think you got to find an offensive head coach, whether he comes from college or he comes from, a coordinator spot somewhere. I know USC, Lincoln Riley. That's where Caleb played. He played for Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma. They kind of went to USC together. Lincoln Riley is not having the best of years in USC, although it would take, I think, $80 million to buy him out.
It's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money.
And it's tough to make the jump from college to the pros. I don't think that's been historically a successful endeavor.
It is. It's not many have been successful doing that, but it's a guy that Caleb excelled under. So I don't know. I think they messed up. I think they had a chance to get the USC offensive coordinator that Caleb thrived under as well, and they interviewed Kingsbury, but now we're seeing what Cliff Kingsbury is doing with Jaden Daniels in Washington. So I think there's been some misfires already, and now they got to figure out some way to fix it.
So does that go back to Poles then?
I think ultimately it's Poles' decision, right? I mean, it's up to him.
Is it? I mean, I hope it is, but
it should be.
The McCaskey family has not historically been the strongest of ownership groups.
No, it hasn't. And then you have no idea where the Bears president Kevin Warren fits into this. Is he just there to build the stadium, or does he have some
guy? Yeah,
or does he have stuff to do with football operations too? So I don't know.
A
lot of questions.
I was in
a lot of questions.
Uber very early morning because I was in Indianapolis this week, and I was at like a 6 a.m. flight, and I'm in the Uber talking to the guy, and he's a Pittsburgh fan, and we were talking about the NFL, and I was having a good kind of NFL conversation for the 45-minute ride from the hotel to the airport, and we were both kind of incredulous of the fact that Mike Tomlin has been with the Steelers now for 18 years, 20 years, something like that.
We talked about that last week.
Yeah, never had a losing record, and they wanted to get rid of him. And I was like, dude, I would take him on the Bears in a heartbeat.
Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah.
I don't know
the guy's
who's
a leader.
Yeah.
The guy's a born leader, and he's a winner. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I mean, Pittsburgh will never get rid of him. He'll retire, a Pittsburgh coach, most likely.
It would take something pretty drastic. I think a few bad years in a row, and they might decide to pull the plug on it and make a change. But I mean, he's still a young guy, right? How old is Mike Tomlin?
I don't think he's that old. I mean, well, Steelers have what? I think it's 3 head coaches in the past 45 years.
He's 52.
Okay, so it was Tomlin, it was Bill Cowher, and it was Chuck Noll. That's it. And then you're back into the late 1970s at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, yeah. I don't know. I don't think they have the money to pry Bill or Mike Tomlin from the Steelers. But would you love a Mike Tomlin type guy for sure?
Yeah. What about
No
Bill Belichick?
Well, what? He's been a year out of football. He's in his 70s.
Is he a get right kind of coach? Fixed culture? I don't know. I mean,
I don't know.
Now
either.
I just see him on the Manning cast version of the game for the first half.
Right.
He definitely knows football.
He knows football. Would he want to come back?
Would his personality fit in with the Chicago Bears? That surly, no nonsense, just kind of like whatever. We're on to Cincinnati, type of approach.
Yeah, but he's one of those guys where his track record kind of speaks for itself, right? I mean, it demands respect. I mean, the guy was able to keep Gronkowski focused enough to win with him, and anybody who can do that has got to be, worth something. But I don't know if he'd want to come back. He seems to be having an awful lot of fun with his mid-20-year-old girlfriend. So,
Who wouldn't?
yeah,
Right.
Yeah. Bill Belichick is definitely winning. So, I don't know. Good question. Good question.
All right. Well, I guess that's the NFL for you. Another poor Chicago Bears week.
Yeah, poor week. I mean, not really a whole lot going on across the league. I mean, Joe Burrow, 5 touchdown passes today.
Mm-hmm.
Lamar Jackson and the Ravens bounced back with a big win over Denver. Bryce Young outdueled Derek Carr for a win in Derek Carr's return. And I think Josh Allen hit 3 touchdowns. And I think the Bills kicker kicked a 61-yard game-winning field goal today. So that's really it.
Yep. And I saw Tua dive headfirst for a first down. So, Tua's going to Tua.
Is it only a matter of time before he does it again?
He did it today. I mean,
yeah,
guy's a football player. Good luck to him.
That's what he said. He said, "Hey, I'm a football player. It's what I do."
Okay, well
pretty soon he's going to be
longer than not. But keep diving head first towards guys who are actively trying to get you to the ground. That's going to be bad news for your skull.
Yeah, you're going to be. I'm going to mash my brain. That's what I do. So, pretty bad. You're like,
you texted me saying that there was going to be, we got some interesting stuff to talk about the Bears today. And I was like, I looked at the test. I almost texted you like, no, we don't. It was the same old shit.
Well, it was more or less about all the Stevenson crap that happened throughout the week. I mean, I can't believe they had a player jabbing back and forth with the fans during an actual NFL play while it was going on.
Is it? Yeah.
I mean, and then he had to run all the way across the field, and then he's the one who tipped the ball when technically he was the one who was supposed to cover the guy that eventually caught the pass. And they sat him for 2 series. Like you said, I know Smith got hurt. I don't know if that was the actual plan. Supposedly, he was informed on Wednesday of what the plan was, and he walked out of practice. That's what Jake Glazer...
saw that, and then he came back. Like it was like a quick thing.
Right.
Whatever.
And all Eberflus would tell the press was, yeah, me and Tyreek, we had a conversation, and I'll leave it with that. Mm-hmm. And again, that speaks to, I think that's a good coach doing what's right. He doesn't need to. We don't need to know what happened. We don't need to know what the conversation was. He's not going to embarrass his player. And I understand it's the media's job to try and get that out of him, but he's not going to publicly embarrass his player and tell us what he said. That's left in house, and I can appreciate a coach for that.
And you'll find out on Sunday when he's not on the starting lineup.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So,
Yeah. Well, your 2024 Chicago Bears, that play is basically sums it up, that Hail Mary last week.
yeah. Yeah. It's just disappointing, as we've said. So,
You mentioned you had some baseball you want to talk about before we hit record. I thought
well,
baseball was over.
baseball is over. One last piece of football that we need to mention because we never talk about it. And I think this time is a good time to talk about it. And this is a shout out to our buddy Jeff, who is a diehard Texas A&M fan.
Uh-huh.
And his number 10 Aggies on national TV really crapped the bed and lost to South Carolina 44-20. So that will put them most likely out of the playoff race as of right now. So, Jeff, if you're listening, I'm sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, the biggest Aggies fan I know, for sure.
Yes.
And one of the few college campuses I've actually been to. It's a very nice college campus.
That's what I've heard. Jeff talks very highly about it. He went there. He's an alumni. So, I'll give him that. And he loves his Aggies. But, yeah, they really crapped the bed last night on national television. So,
well, there's so many bowls now. Does it matter? Everybody's winning at the end of the year, right? They get some sort of bowl.
They're already bowl eligible, yes. And now that college football's gone to a 12-team playoff, the top 12 will make it. And, they're number 10. I don't know what they are as of today. They were number 10 going into last night. But, maybe if they win out, they might climb back into it. And I know Jeff would love that. But, it's just kind of, he loves them so much. Sometimes it's fun to see him lose, if you know what I'm saying.
we like to give shit to our friends, right? Those are the ones that you.
Yes, we do.
Look, if I'm not giving you shit, that's when you got to be concerned because I'm not thinking about you.
That's right. So Jeff, we're thinking about you. We love you, and your team sucks. Okay.
Fair enough. I'll roll with that. All right, let's hit me up again. MLB. I did see that the Yankees declined to pick up Rizzo.
They declined Rizzo's deal. Okay. We'll recap the World Series here in a second. So free agency obviously starts right after the World Series ends, which I believe it ended on Wednesday night. Yeah, they declined.
The Dodgers won.
Very exciting. I figured they would. I think I picked them to win it in 6. They did in 5. I don't know if you watched the game at all. I'm guessing you did not. That's fine. They had a lot of help from the Yankees in Game 5, and we'll touch on that in a second. But yeah, let's talk about ex-Cub Anthony Rizzo. So they declined his team option for, I forget how much it was. It was a fair amount of money. So he now becomes a free agent. And the talk is on both sides of town. There are arguments to be made that he would benefit from coming back to the Cubs on a short-term deal, provide some leadership, play first base, and then retire. Or he could come to the White Sox, again, provide some veteran leadership, play against right-handed hitters or right-handed pitchers, and maybe make himself tradable at the deadline to where they could trade him for a prospect or two. As a Sox guy, I don't want any part of Anthony Rizzo, and it has nothing to do with Rizzo himself. I think he's a fantastic baseball player. I think he's had a really nice career. But it would do the Sox absolutely no good to sign a 35, 36-year-old Anthony Rizzo in the state of where they are right now. They need young guys, let their young players play. They don't need old man Rizzo on their roster.
I mean, maybe he was cheap, but I don't think he's going to be cheap, right?
I don't think he's going to be as cheap as some people would want him to be.
Right. I mean, how did he do this year? Did he have a good season? Is he aging?
He was decent. He's definitely aging. I know he was hurt. He did play the World Series with 2 broken fingers. You have to admire that. It's hard to hold a bat with 2 broken fingers. I believe he still hit 300 in the postseason, which is very good. But
looking at his stats for this year, I mean, he batted 228 on the season.
Yeah, not great. He's getting older.
Postseason 267.
Okay. I think it was the World Series he hit maybe 300 or something like that. But anyway.
Yeah.
I don't think Rizzo belongs on either roster. I don't think he does the Cubs any good. The Cubs situation in the offseason just got more difficult because Cody Bellinger opted in on his $27.5 million player option. So that now leaves the Cubs with a lot less money to spend in free agency, and they kind of have a logjam in the outfield and first base with Cody Bellinger coming back because they've got Michael Busch, they've got Seiya Suzuki, they've got Ian Happ, and they've got Kikro Armstrong. So you basically have 5 guys for 4 spots. So it'll be interesting to see
benefit of
what
Rizzo
they do
coming back to play. Is it purely just because he still thinks he can and he wants to, or is it time for him to retire?
The benefit,
and maybe go to coaching.
Maybe. I mean, the benefit is he's a great clubhouse guy, right? He's a great leader. That's what supposedly you need that. Every time the Yankees had a problem in the World Series, it'd be Rizzo, going to the mound, slowing the game down, trying to kind of get everybody reset, that kind of thing. He is like having a coach on the field. The issue becomes, are his diminishing skills worth having that? His skills, he's not as productive anymore. Can he still play a solid first base? Yes. Can he hit like he used to? No. So, maybe for a team that's going to contend, and if you need a bat off the bench, and like I said, a good clubhouse guy, Rizzo's somebody to look at. I could maybe see the Yankees bringing him back on a cheaper contract if they're interested in that. I think it was something like $17 million that he was potentially owed if they picked up the option. But I mean, if they offered him something like 1 year, $10 million, yeah, that'd be worth it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him.
That's the dilemma, though. Every player has, though, right?
Right.
When do they hang him up?
When they hang him up, it's nice to be able to hang it up on your own terms as opposed to baseball basically telling you you're not good enough anymore.
I mean, there's a lot of pride for
it happens,
folks, right?
It happens to everybody, but at the end of the day, baseball's a business, and those are the tough conversations that GMs have with agents and agents have with players, and just basically say, nobody wants you, and it hurts. Anthony Rizzo, I'm sure, will be just fine. He's made, millions and millions of dollars over the over the course of his career. But there is a lot of personal pride that comes with being a professional athlete. So it's tough.
Well, I wouldn't mind to see him come back to the Cubs on a some sort of team friendly thing, or just a ceremonial 10-day contract or whatever they do to retire as a Cub or whatever.
Retire as a Cub, sure. Yeah. And that could happen. That could happen. I just don't think they can spend a full year's roster spot on him. A part-time player that can only play first base and DH for you when you already have guys that can do that. So that are currently under contract, but yeah, as for the World Series, Dodgers win it in 5 games. Freddie Freeman, we talked about him last weekend.
Did he get MVP?
Yes, he did. He got MVP. He actually hit home runs in the first 4 World Series games of this year. And he actually set the record for hitting a home run in 6 straight World Series games, because he played in the World Series, I believe it was in 2021 with the Braves when they won it all. And then the last 2 games, he had homers in that one. So 6 straight games in the World Series with home runs for Freddie Freeman. First guy to ever do that. He's also the 12th player all time to be a regular season most valuable player and now a World Series most valuable player. The other 10 of 11 of those guys are in the Hall of Fame, and the 11th guy is Pete Rose, who will never be in the Hall of Fame, but probably should be. So, that's a path for the Hall of Fame for him. He also had 12 RBIs in the World Series, which ties the record for the most RBIs in the World Series. So very good series for Freddie Freeman.
I mean, I would say almost, I'm looking at the stats. I don't know the guy, but it's almost like a statistical anomaly. A guy who hits 22 home runs on the season and then goes into the postseason and hits 4 in the biggest games of the year.
Well, I mean, it's a true definition of what Dick Vitale would refer to as a PTPer, primetime player.
Yeah, exactly.
The guys who shine under the brightest of lights, big time players make big time plays, as Stacey King would say.
Yeah.
I mean, you could all the phrases and stuff like that. But Freddie is definitely a big game performer, and the World Series is where you need your stars to be your stars, and he definitely was the star of stars during the series. So, a couple other blips. Walker Buehler, who got the save in Game 5. He is now the 8th pitcher all time to have a win and a save in the same series. Walker Buehler is a starting pitcher. The Dodgers used 8 pitchers in Game 5, which is the most in a World Series clinching win. They were down 5-0 in the second inning, and then, went to their bullpen very early and, just kind of clawed their way back. The Yankees completely imploded. Aaron Judge dropped a fly ball that was a routine fly ball, his only error all season. And that just kind of spiraled into a ground ball in the infield that was thrown to third base on a bounce, and third baseman dropped it. Guy was safe. Mookie Betts hits a grounder to Rizzo at first. Garrett Cole forgets to cover first and was safe. And it just kind of spun out of control from there. Dodgers go on to tie the game, take the lead. Yankees tied it and took the lead back. And then Dodgers win it in the 8th inning. Just a great performance by obviously the best team in baseball. I mean, what else can you say? The Dodgers were the best start to finish. They probably had the most loaded roster, top 3 payroll in baseball. We've talked about that. They did what they were expected to do. So
what does next year look like?
Well, I'll make the argument that the Dodgers actually should be favored to win the World Series and arguably will be even better than they are this year.
Why is that?
Reason being, they've got Ohtani, who's going to return to the mound. We've talked about that in the past.
But will it be the same?
We'll wait and see. We'll see.
Okay.
But you're looking at Ohtani, Tyler Glasnow, Yoshi Yamamoto, Walker Buehler. Potentially, Buehler's a free agent who I think will come back. And then you'll probably see one more season from Clayton Kershaw. So, much better starting rotation than they had this year. At the end of the season, they only had 3 healthy starting pitchers on the entire roster. They do have some free agent questions. They've got Kike Hernandez, Teoscar Hernandez, Walker Buehler, and Blake Trinan, who should all come back if they want to remain dominant. Let's talk about this. Totally off the Dodgers for a second. Mookie Betts, I forget, it was the first game in Yankee Stadium, I think. It was game 4 in Yankee Stadium. Balls hit to right field, down the line. Mookie reaches into the seats, makes a catch. Yankees fan grabs his glove.
Saw that.
Pries it open, yanks the ball out. Another Yankees fan grabs Mookie's left wrist and holds it in place while this other guy can pry the ball out. Now, if I
mean, that's something I expect on the south side of Chicago, frankly, with some of the fan shenanigans I've seen out there.
Yes. Now, if I'm Dave Roberts, and I got to hand it to Betts, he handled the situation pretty well, although he said after they won the series, he mentioned that there's only been 2 times in his life that he ever wanted to fight somebody, and that was one. The Yankees were all set. Obviously, those 2 fans got kicked out of the game.
They got banned, I think, didn't they?
Well, eventually. The Yankees were all set to let them back in because I think they were season ticket holders. Let them back in for Game 5. And Major League Baseball stepped in and said, absolutely not.
Good eventually they got to the right decision, it sounds like. Kind of wish it had been a little more immediate from the Yankee side.
Can you imagine if that guy who grabs Betts' wrist twisted it wrong, pulled it, sprained it, God forbid, broke it, what the story would be and how... I just can't even imagine. I'm sorry. I think the guy should be charged. How those dudes didn't spend the night in jail, I don't know. But that's the craziest thing I've ever seen happen in a baseball game. I've seen fans, reach over the fence with their gloves and catch baseballs. It actually happened in the world in a playoffs for the Yankees a few years ago when a kid did it.
I mean, Bartman, right? Cubs,
with the Bartman case, I remember there was a game where it was actually at Wrigley Field where a Cub fan stole a hat off of a Dodger relief pitcher back when the bullpens were along the bricks, So stuff like that happens, but I've never seen it.
How dare you steal some piece of sporting equipment from a sports player? I mean, who would ever do such a thing?
Who would ever do such a thing? But it's just the craziest thing I've ever seen in a game. And it could have been a disaster for the Dodgers, and luckily it wasn't. But man, I'm sorry. If I'm Dave Roberts, I would have said, had those guys showed up, I would have said, my team does not take the field until those guys are gone. That's just my feeling. But I don't know what you think about that.
I mean, unacceptable behavior. I mean, an issue we can both fully support. Those banned, revoke your season tickets, you lose your privilege. Hopefully the next set of fans who sits in those seats are a little more respectful.
Well, I guess they donated the 2 tickets to, I think, a recovering cancer patient and his dad. So that was kind of cool.
Which is great.
So, yeah. That's what it should be.
Yeah.
So,
but I think a lot of fans feel like there's this expectation that they have more power than they actually do.
Right.
I mean, you're a fan, you show up and you cheer for your team, and sure, give the other team, some shit. But when it comes to a play like that, where, that was pretty egregious.
Yeah, it was
premeditated.
I mean, is that more of a reaction, or is that a guy sitting there thinking, hey, if the ball's here, I don't care what the player does, I'm going after it, and if he sticks his glove in here, I'm gonna try and take the ball out. I mean, do you have that on your mind?
Does he do that for his own team?
There's no way in hell.
I mean, you would think a logical person would have that same thing, but these are not logical people.
No, these are Yankee fans.
Also,
but, but
I see where I'm coming from. It's like, okay, I get it, right? The other team, but were these guys just like, I want a World Series ball, and it doesn't matter how I get it, or was it taking advantage of the situation where, this is a perfect opportunity to, influence, or, I mean, the only reason you do it is to try and get a trophy, a souvenir from the game.
Sure.
And it just, I don't understand.
Yeah. What motivates a guy to do that? Right. I don't know.
Was that,
you look at the guy,
and that's a gut reaction thing, right? It's a fly ball. The odds of it coming to you are, I don't want to slim to none, but if that had gone anywhere else in the stadium, do you think that same reaction would have occurred? Probably not.
Most likely not. I mean, if you looked at the guy, he looked like he had the IQ of the desk I'm sitting at, but I don't know. I mean, Bartman, in the Bartman situation, it was a guy who took a ball away from his own team.
Yeah, right.
Right?
But he was pretty well into the stands, too. This was pretty close. I'm not saying what Bartman did was right either, but, and he's certainly, he's got enough shit for the last decade or whatever it's been, but...
Yeah, well, he's been, it was 98 when that happened, and
almost 30 years
we haven't seen Steve Bartman since.
Yeah. When do you think that shows up on Netflix as a whatever happened to special or documentary?
Well, they did the 30 for 30 on it on ESPN as to what happened that night, what happened to him after that night or during that night, how all the crap that he took trying to get him out of the stadium, how he hid in the apartment of one of the security people for the Cubs who happened to live across the street. She took him into her apartment and basically hid out until the game was over. And I guess, he took his phone off being listed. Nobody knows, they've protected him at his work. Nobody knows where he is, at least not publicly. So,
yeah, I'm looking at articles and it looks like nobody's really seen or heard from him since 2016. And he still lives near Chicago and works for some sort of financial firm somewhere in the area.
Okay.
Okay.
But
he did get a World Series ring. The Ricketts family gave him one
good.
from the
That's cool.
2016 series. So
that's cool.
Yep.
That's cool. Well deserved.
Yeah. Not the way anybody wants to earn it, but
No, yeah,
yes.
what that guy's been through over the years, well deserved. So
yeah, and then, and that could have been anybody.
Oh yeah. Well, you saw when that happened, 4 or 5 people went after it, and he just happened to be there. But other people went after it, so it could
I'm
have
looking
been.
at the still. I mean, Alou, I don't think would have gotten it, but
No,
whatever. But
and
it's
he
not
acted
like
like
Bartman actively attacked Alou, grabbed
Yeah.
his glove,
and
pinned it.
Alou, if I recall, he acted like a total ass when that happened, stomping up and down like a total baby.
Yeah.
And he did not help the situation at all. I understand it's a heat of the moment, but come on, Moises, you're better than that.
Yep.
So, but okay, so back to baseball. Let's talk about the White Sox hiring a new manager, Will Venable, kind of an up and comer from the coaching ranks. He's a bench coach for the Rangers when they won the World Series 2 years ago. He's a coach for the Red Sox. He was coach for the Cubs. Played 8 years in the league. Played with the Padres. Played with the Rangers. Played with the Dodgers. Played college baseball and basketball, where he was all Ivy League at Princeton. So obviously, a pretty smart guy. I think Sox fans should be somewhat excited. It's going to be a long road back for them. It's not going to get fixed in 1 year. But it was nice to go see them get somebody from a winning organization that has a track record of some success. So we'll see what they do. They've got some trade targets that they can trade away to maybe get some more prospects, and Garrett Crochet, Luis Robert, and maybe even Andrew Vaughn. They've got a lot of young pitching in the minors that could eventually develop into something good. But it's going to be a long road. As I've said before, I still don't see them being relevant for another 3, 4, maybe even 5 years. So we'll see.
Are they still looking at moving the team? Or is that still just empty threats?
I think that's kind of calmed down a little bit. I don't think you're going to hear a whole lot about that in the off season. I think that's more of a ploy to still try and get their new stadium built here. The commissioner has publicly said there needs to be 2 teams in Chicago. Chicago's an anchor city for the American League, and I would agree with that. Chicago is big enough to have 2 teams. It's the 3rd biggest media market in the country, outside of New York and Los Angeles. Both New York and Los Angeles have multiple teams, and I think Chicago can continue to have 2 teams as well. It's a Cubs town. It will always be a Cubs town, but I definitely think there's room for the White Sox as well.
If you say so.
Yeah, and then we talked about with the Cubs, we talked about Bellinger, and they will have a new third base coach next year, as Willie Harris has parted ways with them. I think it was mutual. Wouldn't totally shock me to see him on the White Sox staff, as I think he is an up-and-comer in the coaching ranks as well. He did play for the Sox. He was on their 05 World Series team. And I think he would be a benefit and an asset to the Sox. So we'll see what happens with that. Let's talk about, we talked a little bit about contracts and deferred contracts, right? Mm-hmm. So I did some research on this. We already talked about the Ohtani contract. So the exact numbers on Shohei Ohtani's contract on what's deferred. So for 2034 to 2043, he is owed $680 million. Okay. That's it.
Chump change.
Yes. The Dodgers have not only done this for Ohtani, I read. They've done this for Mookie Betts, who is owed $115 million from 2033 to 2044. They've done it for Freddie Freeman, who's owed $57 million from 2028 to 2040. They've done it for Will Smith, their catcher, who's owed $50 million from 2034 to 2043. And they've done it for Teoscar Hernandez, who's owed only $8.5 million from 2030 to 2039. So the 2030s are going to be extremely expensive for the Dodgers. To all total, they have deferred $915 million in deferred contracts. Wow. Think about that. Almost $1 billion in contracts.
I would say they're mortgaging the future for the present, but I'm sure they'll be fine to pay those. I have to think the money goes into a savings account or something, escrow or something, where it's going to collect interest or something on it. But
you have to think they sell out just about every game. Okay. And with Ohtani and Yamamoto on the roster, they have a huge following in Japan where, again, they sell all the hats, they sell all the jerseys, they sell stuff. I'm sure there's a big TV contract in Japan that they've got. The revenue is definitely there. So I think it's a worthwhile investment. My question is, so I looked at, excuse me, all of this is legal with the collective bargaining agreement within baseball. So they're not like circumventing rules or getting around stuff or anything like that. And there is no limit for any team as to how much you can defer at any point in time. There's no limit. So that was my next question is does this count towards like a salary cap at all? No, there is no.
It counts against this year's, but if they decide not to pay it.
Right. Well, what you're paying this year counts towards this year. So Ohtani, for instance, is making $2 million that is actually going to be paid out. That's what counts against luxury tax. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All this deferred money does not. Once it gets paid is when it counts. So the Dodgers, in my opinion, have put themselves in a position to where they're going to have to keep deferring in order to avoid the huge payday. Because at some point, all this stuff is going to come due, and they're going to have either 1 or, in this case, 8 or 9 years where they've got a huge luxury tax bill that they've got to pay all this stuff, right? Because when these are being paid, most likely none of these players will be playing baseball at that point. Maybe Freeman, but, you're talking contracts that don't even start for another 8, 9, 10 years. And most of these guys will be done at that point, So my question is, are they setting themselves up for failure, or are they just going to keep on doing it? I mean, if you're an institution are you willing to put your team at that much financial risk that far down the road in order to win now?
That's why I feel like this money is somewhere in an account to keep it. Because if I'm a player, I want some kind of guarantees that if I'm going to defer it, that money's going to be there.
Sure.
So it's got to sit somewhere in escrow or something.
So you think the team already has it? It's just a matter of where.
I think it's just accounting games and moving, money from one line to another,
sure.
And just say, okay, this is a creative financial trick. If anything, this strikes me as something that maybe MLB wants to address, because what's stopping other teams from doing this?
Well, that's the thing, because with there being no limit, I mean, the Dodgers have the luxury of being backed by part of their ownership group is a multi-billion-dollar financial company. I think it's called Guggenheim. Not every team has that luxury. Some of these owners are private entities, or families, if you will, where their main business is the team. And while every team in MLB is worth $1 billion or more, not all of them are able to defer $900 million worth of contracts, right? So,
right.
What does that do to the competitive balance of the league, right? Is it fair? Is it not fair? I debate this stuff online all the time. I don't know. All I know is right now in MLB, there are 27 contracts that extend for 10 years or longer. And that number is probably only going to get bigger.
Yeah.
As teams figure out that, hey, in order to give us a better chance to win, we have to be willing to spend the money. And if we're not, then we're just going to be satisfied with losing. So
I'm not sure what the answer is here, because I feel like this is a little bit of class warfare for a team like the Dodgers, who has essentially unlimited spend, and they're in a market that affords that, where they essentially the salary cap does not matter to them.
Right.
So how does MLB create at least the appearance of a league that has parity, which is really what the NFL has tried to do, where every team has a chance, to get into it.
Well, I think the other 3 major sports, being the NFL, the NBA, and the NHL, all have hard salary caps. Baseball does not. They try to kind of curtail that a little bit with the luxury tax, but teams like the Yankees, the Mets, the Dodgers, and a couple others, they don't, luxury tax be damned. We'll pay it. We'll care.
Mm-hmm.
But teams
so you're a White Sox fan.
Yeah.
How does this make you feel? Because the White Sox will never compete against a team like that.
Financially, no, they won't.
Financially, no. They have to get lucky with good drafting and young players that overachieve early on.
Yeah, but as a White Sox fan, yeah, it's frustrating. But what's also frustrating is there's other teams that have been able to do that in the long haul. I know the Tampa Bay Rays have not won a World Series. They haven't gotten all the way there, but they were a consistent playoff team for a while. The Baltimore Orioles have a lot of really good young talent that put them in the playoffs, I think, the last 2 years. And they will be contenders for a while. They're not paying their guys a whole heck of a lot because they're all really young. If I'm the White Sox as a fan, I would love to see them draft better and just make better decisions as far as identifying talent, identifying college talent, identifying the right trades that they can make for guys that are looking to maybe get paid. And then it takes a really smart GM to draft the right people and then get the right people at their prime before they have to be paid. And then, you move them along and then you just keep drafting them.
Listen.
But your player development staff has to be top notch and your scouting has to be top notch in order to do that. And the Sox don't have that. They've proved the last few years that they just don't have that. So,
well, that's the odds that you're playing, right? Is you're stacking the deck in your favor. Say, look, we've got all these great players and we're paying them, $1 billion that we're really not going to pay them until 10 years from now. But it's a creative financial trick to get around things,
right? And
to free up capital now to go sign more players, and this becomes just a cycle. What's going to stop them from doing it?
I don't know. I think the argument becomes baseball needs a salary cap. That's what the lower level teams are going to say. But with the players union, I don't know if they'll ever agree to it because
this is how they make money.
With the salary cap, that limits their ability to make money. Exactly. So
right.
I don't know. And then that's where work stoppages happen. That's where owners lock the players out or the players go on strike. And at some point, it's going to have to be addressed. They say baseball's players union is one of the strongest unions in not just sports, but in business. They're able to basically keep what they want and have the power to, keep rolling with how they want to get paid and things like that. So it'd be interesting to see.
Surprising for me, considering it's not the most popular sport in the U.S.
I know.
It's definitely more popular, worldwide, especially Latin American countries and Japan and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But you would think the NFL would be very anti-union. For obvious business reasons.
Well, the good thing about the NFL is the salary cap just keeps going up and up and up, right? Because the revenue keeps coming in. So
right.
you're starting to see quarterbacks making $40-50 million a season, and you can still fit it in under the salary cap. There was an argument.
Peyton got 20. Is like, oh my gosh,
yeah.
Is he worth every penny? Yeah, he's awesome. And then you get guys now are making 50. Daniel Jones got 165 million,
right?
And he scored his first home touchdown in like 2 years today.
Well, at one point there was an argument to be made that maybe they should not count the quarterback against the cap and have the cap apply to everybody else, but the quarterback you can pay whatever you want it. So I don't know if that solves anything. Probably doesn't, but football makes it work, and these guys make a ton of money. Now, granted, from an ownership standpoint, there's only 17? No, not even. It's only 8 or 9 chances to make money because it's all the games you have. In baseball, you as an owner host 81 games a year.
Yeah, but it's also a lower price point typically.
It is.
Yeah. Yes. So you're making it up in volume, not necessarily big hits for the home games.
Uh-huh.
But there's so many different revenue sharing options out there that if you're fortunate enough to be an ownership group or own a professional sports team, you're probably not hurting for money in any way.
Oh, no. No, there aren't. No, there are not many sports owners that are in the red, so to speak.
But as a fan, you want your organization to be well run, respected, be competitive,
Yeah.
And if you're an employee of those organizations, right, you want to make sure that you're taken care of and acknowledged and things like that, just like any other business that's successful. And I just find that hard to do when you've got a team like the Dodgers, the Yankees, or any team that essentially has unlimited funding and can outclass any team that they want to. All they have to do is write a check.
100%. It's got to be hard being, I always bring them up, being a Pittsburgh Pirates fan or a Cincinnati Reds fan or, a Miami Marlins fan. That's got to be tough. They just don't have the money. And that means you have to be that much better at player development because you can't go out and buy guys. You just can't,
Which is difficult already.
Yeah.
I mean, you're looking for the diamond in the rough and the guy that you thought was going to be a surefire,
right,
first round pick or, just a stud in the league. Doesn't happen.
And when you do find one, he signs an entry level contract for what, 3 or 4 years, whatever, and then he becomes a free agent, and then you can't afford to keep him.
Right.
And then you got to do it all over again. So,
or he goes and plays football or some other sport because he can do multiple things.
Yeah, right. Definitely.
Yeah, I don't know the answer for it, but I feel like it's something that needs to be figured out.
It does need to be addressed because, eventually baseball might implode, if you will. It's like, basically the owners at some point are going to say, look, we can't do this anymore, and what are the players going to do then?
Yeah.
Then you got a lockout that happens for years. Then you lose the fans. Fans become disinterested, go on and move on to other things. And then, then you need a steroid fueled home run race to bring them all back. So, like what happened
for me for a little bit, but didn't keep me long enough.
Yeah, exactly.
You can always go the Savannah, Savannah Bananas route.
The Bananas, the Bananas, they're coming to Chicago
baseball,
this year.
Which is great. There you go. So
the Bananas
that's
are on
baseball I want to see.
The Savannah Bananas are going out on tour this year. So
yeah,
I'll admit it's not for me, but I understand it's for a lot of people. So it's a little different brand of baseball with a little music, a little comedy added to it. So for those of you who will go out and watch that, enjoy.
I think it's an entertainment thing, right?
Yeah.
So is it the best baseball you ever see? Probably not. But are you going to have a good time? Yeah,
it's like watching the Globetrotters. It's like watching the Harlem Globetrotters. It's very similar to that. So
yeah, I'll go out and watch that. Looks like let's see, they're coming to Charlotte in June next year.
There you go.
There you go. Come on, make a road trip. I'll get us tickets and we'll go see the Savannah Bananas. I know Barb has been talking about watching these guys. Hey, they're going to be in Chicago next year too.
That's what. Yeah, I know they'll be here at some point. So
yeah. So there you go, Savannah Bananas. This episode brought to you by the Savannah Bananas.
Yeah, if you're the Bananas front office, give us a call. We'll promote the hell out of it. So
yeah, there you go.
For all 10 or 12 of our listeners. So
that's
we'll
right.
See.
We'll shill whatever, right? Whether it's mattresses or some sort of protein powder or
I will schlep whatever it takes to get the word out. So. Or to monetize this thing. That'd be awesome.
I'm not too proud to start building that wealth so that we can turn this podcast into the Dodgers of the podcast, and we'll have unlimited funds. And yeah, we'll gladly pay you now, in 10 years.
Yeah,
money now to edit the show.
You can defer money to me. That's fine.
Right. Yeah.
Oh.
All right. What else?
Right.
An hour late. You said you were going to hit me up with something. I'm
going to hit you up with something.
Cautious of what this is.
No.
Right.
It's something that you and I, share in common, and we spent a lot of time with this back when we were younger.
Well, we're both good looking, both really intelligent. I mean, what else could it be?
Well, okay, so about a week and a half ago, it was the latest induction of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland, Ohio. I don't know if you follow that at all.
I have not.
So every year they induct anywhere from 6 to 9, maybe 10 groups or performers in music into the quote-unquote Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
And it's not really rock and roll. It's really more
that's
music.
part of this discussion. So here are the 8 people that were in, or the 8 performing acts that were inducted this year, okay? Mary J. Blige, Cher, Dave Matthews Band, shout out to Chad on that one because that's his favorite.
Still not rock.
I know. Foreigner, Peter Frampton, Kool and the Gang, Ozzy Osbourne, and A Tribe Called Quest. My first question to you, out of those 8, how many of those would you consider to be true blue rock and roll?
I mean, the answer is obviously Ozzy. And then first of all, that's my like Ozzy's the only one on this list. I think you can maybe make a case for Foreigner, I guess,
I would make a case for three of them. I would say
maybe
Ozzy
Peter
Osbourne, Peter Frampton, and Foreigner. Exactly.
How is Ozzy not already in there?
He's in there as a member of the group Black Sabbath.
Right.
This is Ozzy as a solo act. Okay, so he's
been doing this for a long time. I mean,
he has. This is long overdue.
Yeah. I mean, it's like they're catching up here.
My first question to you is, because there are currently with a Tribe Called Quest, they are now the 11th rap performer or group to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. There are now 11 of them. Is rap considered rock and roll in your mind?
No, which is I think the problem that a lot of people have with it being called the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I don't know if I would describe, rap music as rock and roll music.
Okay.
If it's gonna be great. I mean, they're a fantastic band. Like nothing against them, but I don't consider them rock and roll. Like just call it the Music Hall of Fame.
I would agree with you. I think
Wise is great. Cher is great. I'll even begrudgingly say, okay, Dave Matthews has obviously had a big impact.
Sure.
Are they just a jam band with a big following, or are they actually good musical artists with intricate songs that are, fascinating to both play and listen to?
Well, they're the modern day Grateful Dead, right? They've got a very, dedicated following. People follow them all around the country. I think
Taylor Swift.
Yeah, right. Well, I'm sure eventually she will wind up
too. Right.
She'll be in here too one day. But okay, here, I'll throw this out there. Can you name the other 10 rap acts in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? I have them listed right here.
I feel like they have been spending the last couple of years catching up.
They have.
This.
Yes.
Is it too soon for Eminem to be in there?
He is one.
Is he in there?
Yes.
Okay, well, good for him.
Inducted last
Snoop
year.
Dogg, Dr. Dre.
Snoop Dogg, not yet. Dr. Dre as part of a group. What group?
NWA.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Is Beastie Boys considered rap?
Yes.
Are they in?
Yes, they are.
And they are. Okay. Give me some hints. Is it more? I mean, I'm guessing they have to have been around for a while.
Two of these gentlemen are high profile. Were murdered.
Oh,
high profile.
Tupac and Biggie.
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
and yes.
Yeah, I don't know why I didn't even think about that one. You think Diddy's gonna make it?
Not anymore. Diddy's going to be in his own Hall of Fame, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Are there any like crossovers? Like, what's the one that that did the one with AC/DC? What's the name of the song? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do, but they're not in here.
Walk This Way, Run DMC.
Oh yes, they are. That they did the crossover with Aerosmith. Yes, that is in
Aerosmith,
here.
that's what I meant. Yeah.
And a group that did a crossover with the group Anthrax, if you're familiar with them.
No, who did that?
Public Enemy.
Oh, okay, Public Enemy.
Enemy, and then you're missing
Jay-Z.
Yes, Jay-Z,
All right.
who may also go down in the Diddy scandal. So we'll see if
Is
that
Kanye
happens.
in this?
No.
Okay.
You have to. The qualification is you have to have your first album has to be 25 years old.
Your first album has to be 25 years old, and Kanye hasn't been around for 25 years.
Not yet.
Okay. I feel like he's been around. I feel like he's obviously gone nuts here in the last couple of years.
Yeah, exactly.
But musically, I think he's very talented.
Sure.
Yeah, like sure. Who am I missing?
He's got some cool ones. Missy Elliott and LL Cool J.
No, yeah, Mama's gonna knock you out. I mean, you made it for one song.
Yeah, right.
Maybe another LL Cool J song.
Oh boy, was it Around the Way Girl? There's a couple others.
How about Missy Misdemeanor Elliott? Name another song other than the one hit that she had. I mean, I'm sure she had more, but like
I'm sure she had more, but in the mainstream rock and roll, I don't know it. So here's my question, because you and I back in the day, along with our buddies, we went and saw quite a few concerts, rock and roll. What has happened to pure rock and roll? Because in my mind, it's gone. It is long gone.
I think the definition changed, and I think, look, as a culture, as a society, things go in waves, right?
Mhm.
Bell bottoms were in, then they're out, then they were back in, then they're out again. Skinny jeans, I don't know where they stand right now, but they were in, and I think music is the same way. I think I'm not typically a fan of most pop music today. I just don't find it compelling. I could appreciate the music and the musician and their talent and ability and stuff like that. But, I see a Taylor Swift and I'm like, other than the one song, what is she? It's the sample from Right Said Fred, the I'm Too Sexy. Look What You Made Me Do, which sounds an awful lot like that. Like, that's the only one song that I'm like, okay, that's decent. I don't find any redeeming qualities at all for any of her other music. And yet, she's the most popular artist in the world.
Yeah.
And sells out. I like rock music. I still do. I still find myself going back to the 90s, early 2000s, and new metal and Korn, and even Limp Bizkit. I mean, they were great, and System of a Down, right? I mean, I still listen to that stuff today, and I'm still discovering music from that area. Puddle of Mud,
Oh yeah,
stuff like that, which I enjoy, and I really like that music, and I really like electronic music. So I'm kind of like in both.
She Hates Me is one of the greatest songs ever.
Yeah.
I love that song.
Yeah. Seether is another great one.
Okay.
I'll tell you, if you're a fan of rock music, do you know the Struts?
Yes.
Okay. I think they are incredibly good. And they have an album, their first album that came out, I got to look it up, I think is just straight bangers the entire way through. And they kind of remind me of like almost like Queen, kind of that 70s kind of rock. But I think if you listen to the first album, is one of the best albums that I've heard in a very long time.
Okay.
I have to look it up and see what the name of it was, but it's the one with kind of other hits. Everybody wants, and just a lot of good ones. Young and Dangerous is good after that, and then kind of falls off from there.
Okay.
But I think of rock music as a guitar, drums, a singer, and there's crunchy riffs
and a bass
melodies and hooks,
yeah,
and a bass player, stuff like that. I guess maybe I'm a purist. I don't know. Metallica, Megadeth, definitely, quote unquote, that was heavy metal, headbanger for a long time. Now it's just kind of like radio.
Well, now it's so funny you say that, because now, in Chicago, you hear those songs on like classic rock stations.
Oh yeah. I hear Nirvana on a classic. I was like, oh my God, please don't do this to me.
And God forbid, you're starting to hear some of it on the oldies station, and that's even worse. But
Soundgarden, Alice in Chains. I'm a 90s grunge boy. That's what I grew up with.
Yeah, no, I remember. I think we had the 3 for concert wise with what was it, Silverchair, Live, and Bush, 3 straight nights.
Yeah,
and that was pretty.
All were excellent. Yeah.
Yes, they were.
Yep.
The last group for me that rock and roll's kind of, I don't want to say died, but it's kind of temporarily gone away, is the Foo Fighters.
Yeah.
And Dave Grohl's got some problems right now, so I don't see any new music coming from him anytime soon. But
still, separate the art from the artist, right?
Yeah.
And that's another banging group.
But yeah, I mean, Metallica put out an album earlier this year that's actually really good.
See, I haven't been able to get to like really get into Metallica since really Load and Reload.
That's fair. Give them a couple listens, and I think you'll get there. But yeah, it's hard for me to let go of the Van Halens, the Def Leppards. Watching what's happening to Motley Crue's career is really disappointing to me, because now they are terrible. And so is Guns N' Roses, but back in the day, they were, really favorites of mine. One band I will tell you that I have really gotten into recently, a lot later than I really should have, is Nine Inch Nails.
Oh yeah, Nine Inch Nails is great.
Just unbelievable sound. There's nobody like them. There's still nobody like them. And Trent Reznor is just an absolute genius. So
yeah,
highly recommend.
So gifted.
Yes.
If you haven't seen it, he did Lollapalooza a few years ago.
Yes.
And just a banging live set. I'm sure you can find on YouTube, but Nine Inch Nails at Lollapalooza, I think it was a couple years ago in Chicago, was fantastic.
Yeah, he is quite the performer. But yeah, some of the ones you mentioned, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, that whole 90s grunge, I was totally all about it, just like you were. Pearl Jam. I'm more personally into early Pearl Jam as opposed to later.
Yeah, me too.
I think their first album is just absolute genius.
Green Day, same thing.
Yeah, Green Day. That's one band that never really resonated with me, but I know they're popular. Rock and Roll Hall of Famers, by the way. And then, getting back to classic rocks like the Led Zeppelins, the Doors, the Stones, the Who, all that stuff. I
never got into those too much. Every once in a while, I'd be like one or two songs, but was never
sure.
That I don't know. I guess what was that psychedelic rock type thing? It just wasn't my jam.
Piece like what they call it, like Woodstock type stuff. Yeah,
that kind of stuff. That. I mean, Jimi Hendrix is. I don't know. Does he fall in that? I mean, he's super talented.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But for me, it's just a shame that they don't, and I hope it makes a comeback someday. It's just now I feel like the world is dominated by like Taylor Swift type stuff or a ton of country. I don't know about you. I can't get into country.
I can't. It's the one genre that I just it's not for me.
Michelle teases me. She's like,
Barb is such a huge country fan.
Yeah, so's Michelle,
I can't do it.
And she's making the transition. I'm just like, I can't get there. Like she absolutely loves Wagon Wheel by Darius Rucker and how he turned into a country guy. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't. That song is nails on a chalkboard for me. I hate it. Yeah, I absolutely hate it.
I'm the same way. I can't. I just can't get into it. I mean, there's I'm not talking like there's the odd song here and there, right? Kenny Rogers, A Gambler, right? Sure,
for sure,
fine, right?
For sure.
Tim McGraw, Mexicoma, that's great.
Yeah, there's a couple of Garth Brooks songs out there, but
the rest of it, just can't do it.
No, I can't either. I just wondered what your take was on today's music because I can't. I'm not with it, man. It's not for me.
I'll tell you what I discover more often now is I like the electronic scene, so more of that sort of dance, beats and things like that. If you get into that, take a look at REZZ. She's a DJ who is fantastic. I like her earlier stuff better. She's really good, and just nothing too crazy, but catchy. I don't know, bass heavy, psychedelic. Not psychedelic, but kind of sit there and kind of groove out, that kind of thing.
I like stuff with a beat. I like guitars, but I like stuff with,
a good like guitar riff is just, come on, man. I mean, I got a guitar that I've been trying to learn how to play for 25 years now.
Well,
and it's not happening.
Remember the days we bought one a long time ago, and fortunately I should have bought it left-handed because I bought a right-handed guitar thinking I could play right-handed, and I eventually sold it. But that is one thing I wish I was able to do was play a musical instrument. It either be a guitar or the drums. Yeah, I wish I could drum.
Because Rock Band and Guitar Hero was about as close as I ever got.
Because every time I hear something by Rush, I turn into Neil Peart. I am the best air drummer that ever lived. But unfortunately, they just don't make music like that anymore, and it just sometimes it makes me sad. But we have our ones that we hang on to and our go-tos, and luckily, I still have my 800 CDs over here to my right, and I could plug any one of them in at any time.
I got no more CDs.
Really?
I have a giant Apple Music playlist that occasionally I'll sync with Spotify or whatever I happen to be using at a time, and it's like I don't know, like 5 days of straight music, like every song ever. Like, there's two other bands in quotation marks that if you like beats, Massive Attack. From 90s.
I remember.
Their Mezzanine album is fantastic. And then The Orb, which I never really got into, but there is The Orb Adventures in something or other, the Underworld or something like that. Super just throw it on and fade off into sleep. It's just this whole trip, which I really enjoyed.
Well, I'll end this discussion with, I shouted out Jeff Cruz and his crappy ass football team. I will give him this at the Hall of Fame induction. Ozzy Osbourne can't really sing anymore, so his greatest hit, "Crazy Train," was sung by the lead singer of Jeff's favorite band, Tool. I believe, was it Maynard?
Maynard.
I forget his last name, but
Maynard Keys or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah, but Maynard did a really nice job.
Maynard James Keenan.
There you go. On Crazy Train, and the guitar solo was played by one Wolfgang Van Halen, who is Eddie Van Halen's son, who is
that's cool.
Quite the guitar player himself. It's pretty cool.
Here's a little trivia for you. Maynard James Keenan is also a very good winemaker.
No kidding.
Yeah, he makes. I don't know if he makes it himself, but he has a winery that is pretty well respected. If you ask my wife.
Good to know. Good to
Yep.
know. Well, some of these rock stars have other stuff that they're into, and they're actually pretty, for all the drugs and drinking that they did at their heyday. A lot of them are pretty intelligent guys. Like,
I read an article the other day. It was like literally 2 days ago that said metal music was the most intelligent music to listen to.
Yes,
because it requires the most thought to both create and consume.
Well, here, bass player for Guns N' Roses, Duff McKagan. I believe he went to Harvard. Either went to Harvard or to Yale. So
and Dexter has a PhD from The Offspring, right?
How crazy is that? He is
chemistry
also
or something like that.
He is a PhD. I believe he is also he's like a surgeon or a doctor of some sort, and he's still a touring member of The Offspring.
Oh yeah, they're still touring and they still put out albums and they still, they still put out the hits. That's my first concert was The Offspring, so they always have a place for me.
That dude is, yes, you have to respect that guy for sure.
Yep.
So,
PhD in molecular biology, Dexter Holland.
Wow, I can barely say molecular biology. So, good for him. Pretty cool.
Okay. What else? Hour and a half almost.
That's all I got for you, man.
All right. If it wasn't for D-Arm Strikes, I would play some of this music, but YouTube ain't gonna like that. So just go listen to stuff.
Well,
the Orb, Massive Attack, The Struts. Those are my recommendations.
I like it. And I'm telling you, dig deep into that Nine Inch Nails catalog, man. It is so good, absolutely awesome.
Yeah. The Downward Spiral is classic. Pretty Hate Machine. And then even stuff later stuff. I'm trying to think of the one that has The Hand That Feeds. I can't remember the name of that one. That's a really good one too.
What is it? There's I can't even.
The Lost Highway soundtrack is great.
Lost Highway's good.
With Teeth.
Copy of A live is so awesome. A lot of talent in that band. The drummer for that band is unbelievable. His sidekick, first name is Robin. I can't think of his last name. Can play pretty much anything. And they are incredible. I've seen them on YouTube. I've never seen them live, but like you said, they are incredible in concert. So there's one.
So I went to a concert earlier this year. I don't know why they skipped my mind. Royal Blood. You're looking for a rock band?
Okay.
Royal Blood is kicking some major ass right now. Saw them in Nashville a couple months ago. My brother Art came down from Chicago. We went to catch a show at the Orange Peel. Two guys. Reminds me very much of Local H.
I loved Local H, didn't we?
Yeah, exactly. A bassist and a drummer, and it's just the two of them putting out this wall of sound of just pure rock, man. It's awesome.
Local H, Bound for the Floor. What a classic that was. So, very cool.
Saw them live too.
Yes, we did. We did.
Yeah, check out Royal Blood. I think if you haven't heard of them, you probably have heard a couple of their songs on the radio, but they have good stuff, man.
I'll check them out.
All right,
man.
All right, let's call it for this week. Talk to you again next week.
Sounds good, man.
All right, I'll talk to you later.
Peace out.